Boys, we are back with RMTS Reacts. This time we're going to do a friend of the channel, Mr. Wendigoon. We're going to do Wendigoon breaking down I proved the JFK conspiracy theory with a whiteboard. I was asked to teach a class on this in high school before I graduated. So we'll go super in depth. Make sure to check out the sponsors, Swifty Hempco, Gfuel Energy, RMTS Pod at checkout for Swifty Hempco, RMTS at Gfuel. So make sure to subscribe, like, share, all of that shit if you actually enjoy the video. And let's go check out this video by our boy Wendigoon. All right, and we're at 7:20, so we're good. Come on, video. Is this not fully... Yeah, we got more forehead. We need to see that beautiful hair. There we go. Okay. Load, come on, bitch.
Hey everybody, so I was doing research for the iceberg and kept coming across like weird shady government stuff, and a lot of it made me think about JFK, and then I was like, I haven't given my crazy conspiracy rant on him yet, so this is that. I say that mostly as a joke. To me,
Is this music his? Yes.
JFK is one of the most obvious cover-ups that have ever happened in history ever.
Well, I don't even think
to
it's
the
a
point
cover-up
there
to
is
that
government
point.
records and committees made who say, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was a conspiracy. So I thought, what better way to illustrate that?
Which is why it seems more or less like the people that have the secret to withhold have a gun to their head and say, if this ever comes out, we have a problem. It's not even a conspiracy theory anymore. It is something happened. We will never know the full answer. And if we do, that is absolutely insane, and somebody kind of went against the grain of what it's supposed to be, and they might be the next JFK. At least that's kind of my opinion on it. It seems like that's where we're headed in this direction.
What better way to illustrate that than with a whiteboard? So bear with me.
Whiteboards
I'm
fix
going to show
everything.
you exactly how JFK was killed and who killed him. What I'm going to do is start with the official telling of events so we can establish how the official report of everything that happened went, and then from there I can pick it apart and we can see what more than likely happened, or at least what probably happened that certain government groups don't want us to know about. I'm trying to get past the minute monetization time before I say the specific word, but yeah, we'll get there.
You're already good,
I
bud.
hope that
You
you
got
all
it.
can appreciate real art when you see it. We give the official retelling of events. On
I love how he's in a
22nd,
tree stand.
1963, John F. Kennedy. Has it been past a minute? It's probably been past a minute. The CIA killed John F. Kennedy. Like, hilariously so, but we'll get to that. 1963, November 22nd, John F. Kennedy and his wife Jackie are going through Dallas on a motorcade in the middle of a big Dallas parade. It was part of his whole re-election campaign. Right in front of them was the governor of Texas and his wife, basically Mr. and Mrs. Connolly. In the front row was CIA agents O'Connolly and Greer. Greer was driving. The official telling of events goes something like this. Lee Harvey Oswald fired 3 shots. The first one was
Look, he's having the same problem that teachers do.
use the Patreon money to get better markers. The first shot was a miss, supposedly bouncing off the pavement and hitting a bystander who we'll talk about in a minute.
So, if I remember correctly, and I'm not just going to go super in depth with this, Wendy. Love you, buddy. The first shot hit off of not a telephone pole, a stoplight pole that went across the intersection on the side going into the square before Dealey Plaza. So after Dealey Plaza, there's that intersection that they take the left-hand turn at. That's in front of the school book depository. There is a metal pole that goes across that skips off that and hits the pavement in some sort of fashion. There's also been stories where that also hit the trunk, but I don't think that one's true. I think he was just a bad shot and fucking missed.
Was a miss. supposedly bouncing off the pavement and hitting a bystander who we'll talk about in a minute. The second shot supposedly hit John F. Kennedy in the back of the neck. The bullet then went through his neck, hit John Connally, the governor, who was sitting in front of him, in the back, right below the scapula. It then shot
Shoulder blade.
through, so let me draw this out, bounced through him into his chest, shot out the front of his chest, hit his arm, and then shot down into his knee and came out as a perfectly intact bullet. This is so absurd that the official name given to it during the court trials that would follow is the magic bullet theory. This is why in the famous Zapruder film, in which you can see the assassination of John F. Kennedy, he's leaned over like this, holding his neck, because he had just been shot in the neck. Finally, the third shot came, hitting JFK in the back of the head and killing him. While making his escape out of the bookstore, John F. Kennedy ran into a police officer. He then pulled a revolver and shot the police officer twice, killing him. Which, I mean, after you shot the president, you might as well add the cherry to it, I guess. It was later found out that Lee Harvey Oswald had communist sympathy ties. As a matter of fact, he tried to renounce his U.S. citizenship some years back, and everyone was happy initially, like, yep, that's the guy that did it. Don't have to worry about anything else. The Warren Commission, which was the board that was put together to make sure everything that I just described actually happened, came back after short deliberation and said, yep, Lee Harvey Oswald was the only shooter, and it was not some grander conspiracy, and we can all close the books on this one. So let me tell you why that's wrong. I'll go ahead and say this to be generous. I do believe Lee Harvey Oswald was one of the shooters. However,
okay, so I'm gonna cover this now before you guys, so that way you guys kind of hear my ideology and my theory in this beforehand. So, and I'm sure that Wendy's gonna go into a few of these ideas and thoughts here. Number one, there is numerous accounts saying that there was way more shots than 3. That there was numerous shots that rung out, and some almost sounded semi-automatic. If I remember correctly, I didn't even touch base and warm myself up on any of this. I'm kind of just going off the top of my head. There was also secondary footage from a camera on the other side of the road from the Zapruder film, so they would have been facing each other. That was never found. Could have been destroyed, could have been never working, whatever you want to believe in that situation. I think it was destroyed. Then you also have the bigger situation of back and to the left, which doesn't make sense from him getting shot like that. The bullet coming through and supposedly being a complete bullet doesn't make any damn sense. So to me, if it is possible to shoot 3 shots out of that gun and not be an expert marksman and do the things that he did not act alone. So if he didn't act alone, how many people were with him? There is 2 main theories that most people kind of look at. They'll look at either the grassy knoll theory or the Secret Service. So those will probably be the 2 that he goes into. One, he's going to end up going FBI and CSI. And that'll be where he goes. But we'll see. CIA, not CSI. I'm retarded.
Let me tell you why that's wrong. I'll go ahead and say this to be generous. I do believe Lee Harvey Oswald was one of the shooters. However, there is not a doubt in my mind that he was not the only shooter. So let me explain. Remember that first shot that I mentioned that was supposedly a miss? Well, what happened is that bullet skipped off the ground, shot to the other side of the street, and hit a man who was standing about 100 yards out, whose name was James Teague. I'm going to be drawing more people so we can keep track. It's our man JT. James Teague stopped, was watching the motorcade go by, which then a bullet skipped off the concrete and hit him in the cheek. You can even see pictures of that skid mark on the ground from the bullet that came up and hit him. The supposed
I didn't
shot.
even know it hit him in the face.
However,
the
big problem to this is James Teague's personal testimony. See, he was walking by the street as the parade was going by and he didn't take much care for it. The reason he stopped and turned to face the motorcade was because he heard a gunshot. Now, if he heard a gunshot, took time to stop and turn, There is no way the first shot was the same one that hit him. But it would make sense if it was the second or the third or more after that. The reason everyone and the official report sticks with 3 shots is because there were 3 shell casings from Lee Harvey Oswald's window, as well as 3 at least confirmed bullets on the ground. However, JT's testimony here messes all that up, and his isn't the only one. The governor who got shot along with Kennedy, John Connolly, says the exact same thing. He says that there is not a doubt in his mind, nor his wife's, that the bullet that hit Kennedy and him was 2 separate shots. Keep in mind, it's called the magic bullet theory for a reason. There's no way the bullet followed that whole trajectory and just stayed together perfectly fine. What makes more sense is that it was 2 separate shots. However, Lee Harvey Oswald was using a 6.5mm bolt-action Carcano rifle. Not to get into all the details of it, but it is literally impossible to fire a bolt-action rifle in the amount of time between what would be Kennedy getting hit and the governor getting hit. The space between the 2 shots was long enough that they could tell a difference in when each of them was hit, but not fast enough for someone to rechamber around and get a second shot off. Unless there was a second shooter somewhere off to the other side. If, and stick with me here for a second, I was trying to draw him on a hill, but it looks like he's got really big legs. We're gonna keep it. Anyway, if Texas
Looks
Red
like
here
somebody
was off
straddling.
on the other side of the road firing shots toward the motorcade too, then one of his shots could have crossed through, striking the president in the neck and continuing, which would make more sense why Kennedy was hit in the neck, bent forward, and then one of Lee Harvey Oswald's shots hit the governor in the back. This is a direct quote from former Governor John Connolly. There is my absolute knowledge, and Nellie's too, that one bullet caused the president's first wound and that an entirely separate shot struck me. So,
take your ideas from...
So I'm going to mute this while this goes through this ad. This also kind of falls into the whole idea where somebody could have been on the bridge that's in front of them. If you Google Dealey Plaza at the end, I might just throw it in there. At the end, at the end of Dealey Plaza, there's a bridge that's an overhang, and it looks directly straight. So if he got hit straight and it went into the car because there was a skip in the trunk of the car. You can Google this. I'm like 85-90% right. There is a ding in the paint from where a bullet ricocheted off of the trunk, which is where some people think that the first shot went. But if you count it as a shot from the front, and it wouldn't end up being the grassy knoll person because it wouldn't have been the right angle and trajectory and everything else, but from the bridge down, it could have hit Kennedy and skipped off the trunk and went back, and it might have lost enough speed in order for it to just kind of roll around and fuck around and not hurt anybody. That could have also been the shot that hit JT, depending on where it hit him angle wise and stuff like that, but that's kind of more in-depth shit. Wendy, we watched your ad.
That one bullet caused the president's first wound and that an entirely separate shot struck me. So where would our man Texas Red be standing? Most of you are probably familiar with the famous Zapruder film, which is the film that is famous for being the one in which JFK gets killed. However, there was another view. There was another camera on the other side of the street that was recording that day that was filming the motorcade from the other direction. In it, everyone who has watched that film has said they can see with absolute certainty puff of gun smokes appearing from the opposite side of the street on what appears to be a grassy knoll. Not only that,
which is
these
behind the
puffs of
fence.
smoke are in time
Behind
with
this,
the time
behind
that
the
bullet
Zapruder
struck
film.
the motorcade. So now you may be asking yourself, what do you mean people who have seen this other film? And that's the fun part. In 1976, a group was formed called the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Now you may be asking, why in 1976, 13 years after the president's death, did they form a committee just to talk about this event? And it's because it came out that the CIA was purposefully hiding information regarding the assassination. Not only that, but they planned after this trial was over to have a trial for the CIA directors that allowed the information to go missing. The original reason that this House Select Committee came together is because new technology was found in '76 that analyzed this data more closely. Using audiograph equipment, and this is my interpretation of that, They managed to pull the audio from the original Zapruder film and picked out that there were 6 shots fired in this amount of time of the film, not the original thought out 3. They were so reliant on this that
So that would account for 2 shots from Lee Harvey Oswald. If 3 is impossible, 2 is doable, right? So then we have this first shot that missed. Makes sense. And he hit John Conley. There's possible shots from the Secret Service with the M16 that is shown in the Netflix doc. There's possible shots from the grassy knoll, 1 or 2 shooters, and there's possible shots from the bridge. It kind of depends on where you see the shots coming from, where they hit, and all of that kind of stuff, and how you break that down yourself. Come on, load,
original
bitch.
Zapruder film and picked out that there were 6 shots fired in this amount of time of the film, not the original thought out 3. They were so reliant on this that, as I mentioned before, they made a whole committee just to relook at all this information. You may be asking yourself, well, what happened to the other film and all the information? And that's the best part. The day after they used that other film footage to determine that there was a second shooter, it all disappeared overnight from a CIA lockup, to which they said that someone probably stole it along with all the other evidence that
I'm going to say this because it's going to be the end of this half. Next half is going to be its own video. The CIA destroys a lot of things. A lot of things. They destroyed the entire door frame and room that RFK was shot in. There's a whole lot of things that just don't make sense about what the CIA and the FBI do. But there's a really, really weird point here that I think Wendy's going to lean into. And we'll see next video. Why, if you are the defendant or believed of a crime, are you still in control over the fucking proof that you did or didn't do it? If you're charged or believed of a crime, that proof should be gone. It should be in somebody else's hands so that way you can't touch it. But I don't know. We're going to find out. Maybe he'll prove it on a whiteboard. We'll see you fucking next time. Check out Gfuel. Check out Swifty Hemco. Use the codes. And subscribe if you liked me. I'm kind of an asshole.